Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, here we are again. These Mondays just keep cropping up. Yep. What is it? July 22nd. July 22nd, 2013, a Monday. Foggy Monday in Pittsburgh, PA. Interesting show for you today, if I must say so myself. I think I've got some really interesting topics here I'd like to get into with you. And coming up in the second half of the program, we have journalist Jeanne Marie Laskas joining us. She is the author of many things, but the one thing we're going to be talking to her about today is her article, her profile in GQ magazine on Vice President Joe Biden. The article itself has gotten a lot of press, and Jeanne Marie will join us and talk about the article, which is, if you have read it, you will understand I'm not engaging in hyperbole here, is as close as you'll ever get to being with Joe Biden. Jeanne Marie's great talent is an ability to absolutely put the reader right next to the subject, and it's an exhausting place to be with Joe Biden. But I came away really liking the guy and having a little more feeling for him than I have. He's a extraordinary piece of work, and Jeanne Marie, who's known for capturing people, it's why she is the go-to profiler for so many magazines, and geez, nails them. So we'll talk to her and maybe get some stuff that she didn't get into it, because I know she spent a lot of time with him in advance of writing the piece. I think I told you that it coincided, when she was doing her research, it coincided with the turnover of popes, and the vice president, being a Roman Catholic, was sent to represent the United States when Pope Francis was installed. And since this was the period in which Jeanne Marie was dogging his every step, she ended up not only going with him, but getting to sit with him at the Pope's investiture. And is that what they call it? Maybe not. They don't investiture a pope. At his crowning, that's not what they call it either. At his ascendancy, I think I had it right the first time, and now I can't remember what the noun was. At any rate. So, and she's Roman Catholic, I think. Yeah, Jeanne is. And so that would be like that'd be a real neat thing that she got, the cherry on top. Okie doke. She'll come in maybe in about a half hour. So, two things I want to talk to you about. And there was like this coincidence of things. Friday, I found myself in a place that had a television on. This was a business, and it had on the 4 o'clock news or the noon news. I don't know what the heck it was. Noon news, maybe. And they're covering in real time this standoff in Latrobe where a man is holed up in a house after robbing a pharmacy of some painkillers. And he's been in the house, we're told, for almost, 18 hours. But at noon, as the noon news started, and to the, I'm sure, joy of the noon news producer, all of a sudden things started happening. So in real time, everyone in the store watched transfixed as these guys who looked like they were out of some movie, and with these strange vehicles that did weird things. They had this vehicle that looked like sort of like a crane, only it had a battering ram on the end, and then it could also insert things into, it's all these little gizmos they had, and it was the state police, and it was Latrobe police, and it was this police and that police, and they all had their SWAT units there. And I kept thinking, I said to somebody standing next to me, I said, well, you know how this is I don't know why we're all standing here. We know how this is going to end. First of all, let's look at the odds here. You got one guy in that house, and you've got, who the hell knows, it looks like 30 heavily armed SWAT police officers and their assorted toys. What's going to happen is, my guess is, he's going to end up dead. He's either going to kill himself or they'll kill him. Or it won't be clear. But he ain't coming out alive. And of course, that's exactly what happened. That is, I didn't stay. I left. I don't know how much longer it took. That's exactly what happened. As it turns out, when they went inside the house, state police found a handgun and a rifle. If you look at the armaments on one side and the armaments on the other, it's ludicrous. And that this guy had to end up dead at their hands is also ludicrous. Streets were blocked off. Power to his home and all the other homes on the block was cut. This was in one of those very hot days. So a lot of people tear gas was thrown. People succumbed to it. Bystanders. So this was a big hullabaloo for a guy who stole some OxyContin or something from a pharmacy. And all I could think as I watched this and listened to the breathless coverage. And yes, he did shoot at one of the police officers when they attempted to get into the house and hit him, but did not. He had hit his face helmet. He was not badly injured. And I remembered the email that one of you, and I think it was Ray, our smart cookie Ray, who emails the show. I think Ray said in an email on Friday that, the elephant in the room of all this, Trayvon Martin and this and that and all the stuff we're talking about is the militarization of law enforcement. And there it was on the streets of Latrobe, the militarization of police departments. And it's odd how this has happened really in the very recent past. And yet it looks normal to us already. That police officers don't even look like police officers anymore. That when they deploy, they look like soldiers. And they have the same gear. They even look scarier than soldiers because usually it's all black. They look like something from, like Darth Vader minions. They look scary. They are armed to the teeth. They have all these expensive gizmos. We saw it here when the G20 came here. And all of a sudden, Officer Friendly from the corner looked like, as I said, Darth Vader. And so I was thinking all those things, and then the Wall Street Journal came on Saturday, the very next day, and there was this huge story, Rise of the Warrior Cop. And here was the real information. Here's the numbers and the data and how this is progressing without any effort to slow it down or stop it, and how odd this is that in the United States of America, a country founded by men who we revere because, in part, they cherished the idea of a government not behaving like an occupying presence, like a military. All you have to do is look at the Bill of Rights, and you find they're talking about this kind of thing right off the bat. Article 3, 3, no soldier, Amendment 3, no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war. We didn't want the cops in our faces, in our lives. We didn't want military and soldiers. We went out of the way to have a civilian, the President of the United States, be the commander-in-chief. And just in the last it really started going crazy after 9/11. Really, in the last 15, 20 years, we have watched as America's police departments have become armies, and with the same ethics of armies, and with the same mindsets of armies, which this piece in the Wall Street Journal points out. It ain't just the toys and the gizmos they have. It is chilling when you look at the history of how we got here. And the reality is it is rare to find a city or a town with fewer than, let's say, a town with just 25,000 people in it. That's a little town, 25,000. The odds now that a town with just 25,000 people in it has a SWAT team, 80%. 80% in this country, every little town has a SWAT team. And a SWAT team, you understand, is trained in military procedure. And a SWAT team has all those gizmos. And if you have all these things, you use them. So where it used to be maybe an officer, a regular police officer, knocking on a door to look into a possibility that there are drug sales going on in this house, now in town after town and city after city, doors are battered down in the dead of night by people dressed all in black with submachine guns and this and that. And it happens over and over and over again because they got the toys and they aim to use them. Listen to this. It's not just every city. It's not just every city. The number of federal agencies that have their very own SWAT teams now is beyond belief. Guess who has a SWAT team? The Fish and Wildlife Service. What? Guess who has a SWAT team? NASA. Guess who has a SWAT team? The Department of Education. And by the way, if you haven't already thought of it, guess who's paying for all this nonsense? In 2011, the Department of Education's SWAT team, who knew, bungled a raid on a woman who was reported to be under investigation for not paying her student loans.
Oh my God.
Jess just turned purple. Oh, I hope you sleep well tonight, dearie. The Department of Education SWAT team could be knocking your door down. And people are getting killed. They're killing innocent people. And many times, the person in the house where these raids, all of a sudden, in the dead of night, doors are being broken down by these idiot SWAT team. All these men playing. This reminds me of boys, playing cop games and military games. Sometimes people have thought that they are, understandably, under attack by some lunatics. And they grab a gun if they have one, and if they're a good American, of course they do, and they start shooting. And they kill a federal officer, or they kill a SWAT team member, or then they themselves get gunned down. And lives are, there's many stories in this piece about people who did react that way and ended up dead, either because they got charged with the murder of somebody when they had no idea what was happening, and became despondent, hung themselves in their cell, stuff like that, all because of these SWAT teams. This started really getting ratcheted up before 9/11 during the first of all, the Nixon administration with the war on drugs. Then the Reagan administration also with the war on drugs. During Reagan, he had National Guard helicopters and U-2 spy planes in the air over California looking for pot plants. Right there, you see this blurring of the lines of what our military does in this country and what police do. This is in the 80s, when suspects were identified. Battle-clad troops from the National Guard, the DEA, and other federal and local law enforcement agencies would swoop in and capture the people. This is all a lot of theater that is, in fact, totally unnecessary. Get this. There's an eye doctor in Fairfax County, Virginia, who's now dead. He was killed in 2006. He's 38 years old. You know how he got killed? He got killed when an undercover detective overheard him at a bar wagering with some buddies on a college football game. This was reported to, who would care? This was reported, and the police department sent a SWAT team after this poor guy, Dr. Sal Colozzi, who had no prior criminal record, no nothing. He was making a bet at a bar. Who hasn't done that? As the SWAT team descended, one officer fired a single bullet that pierced his heart. The SWAT team for the Fish and Wildlife Service raided the floor of the Gibson Guitar Factory in Nashville on the suspicion that the Gibson Guitar Factory was using illegal hardwoods harvested in Madagascar. So they come in with, again, guns blazing, black suited. What the hell is going on? That Latrobe situation no more needed the firepower, the armaments, all those little toys that we saw play out on our television than I do. Not necessary. And in fact, I think that SWAT stuff and the SWAT mentality invariably escalates situations. We didn't used to. I mean, jeez. Okay, so what else can I tell you here? Innocent bystanders have lost their lives in these raids. The guy who wrote this piece for the Wall Street Journal said, in my own research, I've collected over 50 examples in which innocent people were killed in raids, and the raids were only to enforce warrants for crimes that are either nonviolent or consensual, such as drug use or gambling. And this guy's saying, I'm sure there are more, I don't know, but I came up with 50 people dead because of this crazy, over-the-top SWAT mentality targeting nonviolent crimes. Serving warrants. That's all they're doing. 92-year-old woman Katherine Johnson killed by Atlanta SWAT team members acting on a, bad tip. Alberto Sepulveda, 11 years old, shot by a California SWAT team during a drug raid. And on and on and on. And what this guy points out is that if you look on YouTube, for instance, for recruitment videos that police departments are putting out now, you know what they feature? Cops rappelling from helicopters, shooting big guns, kicking down doors in their black-clad uniforms, and they're saying they're trying to attract people to become police officers. What kind of people are going to be attracted to that, and is that what we need on our police departments, in our police departments? You're attracting people for all the wrong reasons. And this article also says, if you just look online at police discussion boards, or even just talk with some younger cops today, you will often hear some version of the phrase, whatever I need to do to get home safe. This is somehow now a mantra that is drilled into young officers' heads. Not to protect and serve, but whatever I have to do to get home safe. Forget that a police officer's job not only is to protect and serve, but if we're turning police officers into these crazed, hyper-testosterone, over-masculinized cartoons, we're not going to get the kind of policing that we need. When all these officers say whatever I need to do to get home safe, it suggests that their mindset has been put in a place where every day, every single action they take could be their last. Fine. You will say, okay, but that's true. All right. But it makes them overly defensive and maybe overly itchy with their trigger fingers. Anyone who thinks what used to be the Vice Squad, it's now the SWAT team. And so they're used for serving drug warrants. Why? Just serve the damn warrant. The Department of Homeland Security, which we threw money at in our terror after 9/11, has given billions of grants to every police department and entity in the country. It was handing it out like candy. And stop and think of Dwight Eisenhower's military-industrial complex. You know how many people now are getting rich off this militarization of America's police and all federal agencies? Again, the dealers in death machinery. This is insane. And we have just accepted it as the new norm. The militarization of our police departments is a big topic, should be a big topic, should be something that is being addressed, and it ain't at all. It just keeps ratcheting up, up, and up, and there is no good reason for it at all. Okay, I wanted to share that with you. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and I'm not going to have time to do it justice, is if you can check out the New York Times front page today, they have an amazing story about geography, about where you are born having a lot to do with whether or not you have a shot at being upwardly mobile in America. Geography plays a very important role, so that there are cities where if you are born poor, the odds of you staying poor are pretty much, well, give it up or move. And they've looked at cities, and they've looked at the characteristics in which some cities seem to allow upward mobility. And I have to tell you, you are going to be blown away by the results in this huge, huge Times piece with strange graphs. Pittsburgh, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the cities in the United States where if you're born in the bottom 20%, that you've got a better chance than others in the country of making it into the middle or even the top. Yay. And Pittsburgh actually comes out on top at the very end. If you look, I mean, a lot of cities, okay, you're born poor and then you just plummet. You born poor. There's very few cities where you're born poor and then you can move up. Pittsburgh is a direct line up and then over. It's not meaning you're always going to do it, but you got the chance of ending up at the very top for a child raised in the worst, in the bottom, is better in Pittsburgh than it is in, shall I start naming names? Washington, Minneapolis, Portland, Fort Worth, Providence, Houston, Fresno, Denver, Connecticut, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Miami, Buffalo, Kansas City, Austin, San Antonio, Port St. Lucie, Tampa, Baltimore, Dallas, New Orleans, Orlando, Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Raleigh, Cleveland, Columbus, Detroit, Indianapolis, Charlotte, Atlanta. Atlanta is at the very bottom. Now, we think of Atlanta as this really go-to town, but Atlanta is a city in which there is no upward mobility. If you're born poor in Atlanta, you're staying poor. The odds of you moving up are just frighteningly low. And if you start looking at why would Pittsburgh, you know what it is? It's our neighborhoods more than anything. It's that we have mixed neighborhoods. We are not, and it's that white people and black people do share some neighborhoods. Also that upper income people have not totally deserted the city. They live in the city in neighborhoods where within blocks people who are of much lesser means also live. I often marvel when I'm walking around the East End how you can go from like this huge estate, like some rich person's home, and then a block over, a very, very modest, like working class home. Now, granted, because of where it's sitting, it might be valued high, but you can see that Pittsburgh has always been a city where the rich lived on one street and the other, and maybe the poor, the middle class was like one street over, and then and the fact that that has kept people in Pittsburgh in a much more mixed situation than in so many cities, that apparently has a lot to do with it. The researchers have identified 4 broad factors, and that is that metropolitan areas where poor families were more dispersed among mixed income neighborhoods, those poorer families had a shot of having their children make it out. And also strong community groups, strong religious affiliation, all that sort of factors into. But unbelievable. Look at this, because I don't necessarily see it here. I'm stunned by it. But it says Pittsburgh is way at the top. If you're born poor, better to be here in Pittsburgh than in Atlanta. And it actually says, if you're poor and you've got kids and you live in a place like Atlanta, move to a place like Pittsburgh. Your kids will have a better shot. It's worth moving. That's really what it says. Unbelievable. Okay, taking a break. When we come back, Jeanne Marie Laskas talking about Vice President Joe Biden, because she spent a lot of time with him.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Wrinkles, tighten, and firm skin on your face, neck, abdomen, and thighs. This is a non-surgical, pain-free lunchtime procedure. Call today for a free consultation, 412-259-8628, or online at swickleymedspa.com.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for the Clarks, Bad Company, Billy Gardell, Frankie Valli, Adina Menzel, Brian Wilson, and Leonard Skinner. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown. Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty. Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Hi, and welcome back. You know, I do read a lot, and usually when I read, it's a relaxing endeavor. But when I read this GQ piece on Joe Biden by Jeanne Marie Laskas, I was exhausted afterwards because she puts us in the vice president's presence, and his presence has left me breathless. Jeanne, are you there?
I am. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. Do you understand what I mean? I was breathless.
Well, a little bit. You tell me more about the breathless.
Okay, so you don't get it. He never stops.
Oh, yeah.
He's like talking, talk, and over here and over there and jumping out of cars and here and there. I mean, I was exhausted by it.
Oh, that's so interesting. That is true to the experience. It definitely is.
Okay.
You don't have a lot of he doesn't pause, at all.
Oh, no, you can't. How'd you get a word in edgewise? Did you ever ask a question?
Very, very infrequently. And at some point you start, if the task is to convey a character on the page, and that's the character, you don't want to inject yourself too much.
No, he's writing it for you, huh?
Yeah, well, he's all material is what he is. Which is, I'll tell you the truth, it's I don't write a lot about politics for this very reason. It's really hard to interview career politicians or any politicians.
I agree.
Really,
I don't interview them at all.
Well, they're programmed with answers.
Right,
now,
right.
In Biden's complete defense, that's not the kind of talking he does.
No.
It's all fresh, live, stream of consciousness, what's going on in his mind at the moment. So it's not like fabricated speak. So that in that way, it's fascinating.
It is totally. I always got a kick out of him, and now I really like him. And how could anyone not like him?
I feel the same way, but I know an awful lot of people don't. And part of the
people who know him.
Oh no, people who know him, I think. You can't not like him.
That's right. I mean, if you know him, he has to be universally liked. I mean, you quote John McCain as saying, Joe Biden doesn't have a mean bone in his body.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good quote in terms of it being true to the experience that I had with him. And in even, not that he would be mean to me as someone who's interviewing him, but just in general out in the world. You just have a real generous spirit, really, truly.
It seems like he's just in love with life, with everybody, and he's so effusive about it. And I think a lot of people, maybe who are a little more uptight or reserved, might, cringe if they saw somebody like him coming at them.
Yes, maybe, but at the same time, it's really disarming. It's like someone, when you're around like really cool people and you feel this pressure to be cool like them,
yeah.
In walks Joe Biden and says, "You know what? I'm not cool. Let's just be who we are." It's just like he breaks through it. It's funny.
I remember,
he's funny.
Yeah. I remember this picture of him where he pulled some like older biker chick onto his lap at some diner, and he was sort of hugging her. And I was thinking, no other politician would.
I know.
But he was genuinely doing it.
Well, and it's true because he walks the line. There's not this like lascivious, lecherdim about him. He walks the line because he's really flirty with and any age group. It's every female is like adorable to him.
Or beautiful.
So it could be really misread and feel icky. Or just sort of inappropriate. But I don't know. I think it's because he's funny. It's somehow he pulls it off.
So, because it's genuine. I don't know, because I think he treats men the same way in many respects.
Yeah. But he sort of makes the, he is. He's like the, oh, God, I love you, and he'll just embrace,
right.
The Prime Minister of Italy. God love you, you're here. That kind of thing. It doesn't.
Yeah. And it is true. He's saying things like, God love you. He'll say that to anybody.
Yeah, definitely.
A king or, the lady in the diner.
And that was what was wonderful to see, because during the stretch of the research I did, there was the Wilmington side of him, but there was also in Rome, the side of him with the Prime Minister and the
Pope.
Prime Minister of Kosovo. And, you see him with his friends, which are these, like, kings and prime ministers. And, like, these are his pals. You see that level, and then you see it on the level of at the cheesesteak place. And his other pals. It's just really, it's a warmth. It's just a genuine warmth. He's a guy who just loves life, you know?
Well,
that kind of character.
This is fascinating because here's a guy who, as we know, had such a tragic death came to his life in such a tragic way.
Yeah.
When he was still, he had just been elected to the Senate, right? His wife.
He had not been sworn in yet. He was 29. He was not old enough.
So he couldn't be sworn. He was the youngest guy. He was 29. You have to be 30?
Yeah, he was about to be sworn in. I'm not sure what the date issue was, but he had to be of age, and he just barely was squeaking by. He was about to be sworn in. And before when it was around Christmas time, his wife and
daughter,
2 sons and daughter, all 3 of them were Christmas shopping back home in Wilmington, and he was in D.C. trying to put an office together. Just had been elected.
29.
And he got the call that there had been this tragic accident, and his wife and baby girl died, and the 2 boys were in the hospital. And so he got sworn in at the hospital.
Okay, he's
they
sworn
moved
in.
The whole thing to the hospital.
He's sworn in at the hospital. He's 20, maybe he's 30 at that point. He just turns 30. Maybe it had to be on his birthday. I don't get it. I don't know. Whatever. 29. He's lost his wife, his child. His other 2 boys are badly injured. He's a single father and a first-time senator.
Yeah. And rose to the Senate, soared without any background. As his sister, I loved her, Valerie, said to me, Joe is the first senator that he and I ever met. They really, it was like a family decision to run for the Senate seat. His sister ran the campaign. His brother ran the finances. His wife, Nelia, ran a whole bunch of all the campaigning that he did. That's kind of.
And he was running against an incumbent of 100 million years. Nobody knew who this kid was.
It was ridiculous.
He won.
This guy had been, I forget in the story, it's something like he hadn't lost a race since like 1945. This Boggs Republican senator.
Yeah.
Nobody, and Joe Biden was, who? It's not like there had been a Biden, family member, nothing. And he was this new wave of politician, the same era as Gore, Gary Hart, right before all that those guys, young and fresh, and kind of ran on civil rights, and he just charmed, Delaware and won.
Well, he's lucky it was a small state. He couldn't have pulled that off in a big. He was maybe able to knock on every door, knowing his energy level. But
and it was really sweet too. I don't have it in the story. His mother ran a lot of it, the campaign too. She would have these coffees. She would get at that era, all these mothers at home, and she was the mom that would rally all the moms in neighborhoods and have these coffees. And it really was a lot of the women vote that he ended up getting because of his mom.
So he comes from this wonderful family, very close family, right?
Very.
And he loses much of his young family, and he doesn't. Does he? Did you talk to him at all about how he kept going forward? I can't even imagine. I know you don't talk about it really much.
It's very hard for him to talk about it, and we didn't really go into depth about it, but he has written some about it, so I was able to read what he wrote at the time and talk to him about what he wrote. But he almost did not. He almost gave up. It was touch and go there.
It was. I can't imagine that it wouldn't have been.
And his sister came to the rescue, and Valerie again moved into his house, took care of the kids, and that's how his whole Amtrak commuting thing started. Because he was a single dad, and he had 2 young boys at home, and he was going to be home. So he was able, because it was just Delaware, it wasn't that far. So he was able to do that, and that's the way remained as a senator for all those years.
He commuted into D.C. and back home.
Yep.
Wow.
And that became like sort of like he was the Amtrak guy.
Well, you know, when it comes to like the Pope and he meets the Pope, I was thinking, oh no. I mean, but he can dial it back. It's not like he's going to go up to the Pope and say, hey, I love you, man.
No. And that's the other side of him that there's an old school side of him that's very, reminds me of my dad, that era of like knowing how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, not going to the dinner table without a shirt and tie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you dress up, you know, that kind of gentlemanliness about him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very appropriate in that way. I think that it's not like he that's the thing, that because he's has this familiarity that he's able to sort of convey, you expect him to be like the beer-drinking bowler.
Right.
You know, but he isn't, actually. He doesn't drink at all, and he doesn't bowl. You know, but there is that kind of familiar, no pretense about him.
You say at one point you're in his the vice president's home, and he says, well, Barack and I or something, and you're startled.
Yeah.
Because no one's supposed... You don't hear anyone say...
Right?
I mean,
you don't, do
Michelle,
you? I don't.
No, you don't ever. Michelle...
I forget his name almost, yeah.
Yeah, Michelle can say Barack, but whoever would... you know, the president, once he's the president, he's Mr. President or the president, right?
Yeah, but he said that a lot. It wasn't just once.
He said
That's
Barack
just the
a
way
lot.
he talked about him.
Okay, and you did get the sense that they are really tight.
Most definitely. I think I was taken aback by that. I thought, just in general, like the role of the vice president, you know, it varies from administration to administration. And I just presumed it was going to be, you know, like on the West Wing, how they convey a vice presidency. It's sort of like this dude in the background who has nothing to do with anything. Almost kind of a pathetic, shadowy character.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like a Dan Quayle.
Yeah.
And even Al Gore was not that involved with the administration.
You think?
But Biden is really an integral part. And if you look back in the last, just this term,
yeah,
you know, with the fiscal cliff right out of the gate.
Yep.
Couldn't solve that one, you know, bring in Joe.
Well, you know,
talk to McConnell.
Well, I want to go back to what McCain says about him. McCain says he is unique in that he's had some role in every major national security crisis that this nation has faced in the last 35 years.
And that is accurate.
Right. And
going back to, you know, Bosnia.
He says, I don't know anyone like him. Look at the number of times he's been able to conclude agreements. I would say, this is McCain, I would say he's the most impactful vice president that I have known.
I know.
Okay, well.
That's from the other side of the aisle. That's from John McCain, for God's sakes, you know?
You know, Jeanne, I would kill to be able to write something like that would make the guy I can't stand the most, Dick Cheney, apoplectic.
Yeah. Well,
Dick Cheney doesn't come off well here in that you asked the Secret Service guys who had been, Cheney Secret Service guys too, right?
Yeah.
And Secret Service guys are notorious for not saying anything.
I know, I was surprised. I mean,
Yeah, but so what'd you get out of them?
Well, actually, a few other ones, even in Rome, had a few comments. The one quote I use is, you know, night and day. What's the difference between Biden and Cheney? Yeah.
Night and day, and what they're meaning is that Cheney is night and Biden is day. And there's a point at which you're quizzing the vice president, and he's uncomfortable or inarticulate about trying to respond. And the Secret Service guy actually apologizes but inserts himself.
I know.
And tries to help the vice president out, which shows me a level of love.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I witnessed. And that's why I was so... It was almost like his name was John. It was almost like all day that we spent together, it was he wanted me to know what a great guy this was. And, he was holding back. You could tell. Because there was little statements here and there, tiny little things. And then finally, at the very end, it's almost like he couldn't hold himself back because the vice president was having difficulty with articulating something or maybe felt on the spot. And John jumps in with this little anecdote about how great the vice president is. It was just so sweet. It was really sweet.
And I again, I'm sure you've been around Secret Service men much more than I, but they are not a talkative bunch.
No.
And they don't engage in normal, intercourse.
They don't really. I mean, they're so skilled. They barely make eye contact.
Yeah, right.
They are on another plane. They need to be.
Right. But there's so many funny little stories. He's showing you around Wilmington, in this place, out that place. Oh, the most beautiful girl in the world lived there. And as you said, in about 3 blocks later, another most beautiful girl in the world lived there.
They're everywhere.
and then he gets to the house that he had grown up in.
Yeah.
And there's a point, he knocks on the door, no one's home. He's staring in the windows.
Can you believe that?
No. So here's the Vice President of the United States. He's on somebody's lawn, and he's staring in their window.
He's pointing in the window. Look at the dining room. See that hutch? We're this little tiny, in this adorable little house in this little neighborhood. The Secret Service guys are spread all around the lawn, like stationed out, watching out. And we were peeking in the window of this house. It went like that the whole day in Wilmington. What was so lovely was he was so excited to show this stuff. It would be like, as Shayla, his communications director, said, he's a person who really inhabits his childhood. It's still very much a part of him. It's like some people really have those kind of vivid memories, and he's certainly one of those. And we just went from store to store to
he remembers
that church, the cemetery, on and on.
He remembers every little thing. Here's when, and you got to see this, and you tramp into some forest. Isn't it magical? I used to think. And he never stops. That's why I said it was absolutely breathless.
Well, that's the other thing. You got to remember, this is a 70-year-old man.
Oh.
He and this is a really ridiculous thing I'm about to say, but climbing in and out of that damn SUV as many times as we did, the guy showed the amount of energy that he has. He is not 70. He is younger than 70 in every way.
Well,
that's the other thing. You don't get any sense of an old man with him.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
Isn't that... Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. The stuttering.
Now, how much of that did you know?
I think when I read it, I felt, did I know? I had this vague memory that maybe I knew that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was. Mm-hmm.
But this seems central.
I think so.
Okay, so tell about the fact he was as a child,
pretty severe
stutterer.
As was his uncle. He called him Uncle Boo Boo, who lived in his room with him, along with his 2 other brothers. And his uncle was his whole life really debilitated by the stutter, really debilitated.
It depressed him, kept him from it. He drank.
He never married. He lived in his sister's house in the boy's bedroom. He had a very small life, and he drank.
Yeah.
And so this is the model. And this is an uncle that apparently Biden just loved. He's smart, engaging, funny, and he had this sort of tragic life. And so apparently this was some kind of model for a young boy who himself has a debilitating stutter. This is back in an era when there wasn't, you didn't just go to speech therapy or something,
No.
You just sort of made it up as you went along. And he came up with all kinds of ways of trying to sort of cure himself of this. One of them was he would just stand in front of the mirror and memorize poems. And if he knew what he was going to say, he could say it if it was memorized, and he could stare in the mirror and watch his face. All kinds of little techniques like that he did. It wasn't until he was a senior in high school that he was able to actually speak in public. Now, that is a long time. You've got to figure you're all of 18 at that point.
Yeah, and he was laughed at.
Really made fun of. He was called Dash.
Yeah.
Because he would say Joe.
Joe.
Or but Biden. He was laughed at by his sister said he was made fun of. He just was.
But here's the weird thing, Jeanne. He was made fun of. It's part of why you will not hear him say a bad word about anybody. He hates bullies more than anything. And defends those with any kind of his heart goes out.
That's central to him. It really is
it's
central.
Absolutely
and you
central.
grow up like that, you can see.
Right. But wasn't he the president of the class? How do you get to be the president of the class and yet you're...
Well, that's what's so
harassed?
wonderful. If you see this kid who is trying to overcome a stutter and becomes popular despite the bullies. He was a really good athlete. That was one of the ways that he earned respect.
Mm-hmm.
He was a tremendous athlete, and so he worked it out on the football field or all these other sports that he played. And he was so charming and engaging and funny.
So there is, at his core, some amazing strength.
Yes, and let me add this to the stutter and strength. One of the ways that he overcame the stutter, this is as a really young boy, was he would find out he was on a paper route and he had to go collect the money, and that was terrible because he had to talk to somebody live. So what he would do, he would find out what the interests were of that person who lived there. For example, maybe it was baseball. He would know the box scores of the baseball team that person liked. He would memorize it. He would memorize what he was going to say when he knocked on that door so that he could talk without being found out to be a stutterer. Now, if you think about that as a growing politician, you're constantly, as a young boy, putting yourself in the minds of other people and their interests and what matters to them.
Wow.
And you're memorizing it. And I mean, it's like the growth. You talk about the growth of a politician. So all of that was at work,
Now, you were sitting with him in his home, the vice president's home, and he began to stutter.
That was really a remarkable moment. I mean, I had asked about the stutter, so it wasn't like it was coming out of nowhere.
Right.
And what I wasn't sure of was he demonstrating this, or was he actually stuttering? It was that convincing.
And you couldn't tell?
I couldn't. It wouldn't be like you or I, who didn't grow up with a stutter, mimicking a stutterer. I don't think you can do it unless you were truly a stutterer. To this degree, it was like you wanted to help him. And I saw him. I went back and dug a lot. He's done a lot of work with like stuttering associations and talked with them.
Yeah.
And when you start digging into that world, that's a really specific disability that he speaks to those people.
Can I just read that? Here's where you write about it. He calls the sunroom in his house the Cheney sunroom. Why does he do that? I don't know. Maybe Cheney added it on?
I think Cheney had redecorated it or something.
All right. Then that day in the Cheney sunroom, it started happening. When you talk like that, he said, his face tilted. His eyebrows went up. Was it fake stuttering, like back at the school? A demonstration? This is Jeanne wondering. His chin appeared to lock in place, his lips nibbled without sound. The display was uncomfortably convincing. I wanted to check with the staff. Does he do this often? Can he just call it up like this? But he had his eyes locked on mine. And looking away is exactly the thing anyone with any physical affliction is waiting for. Waiting for you to flee, to prove that this is so grotesque you can't even look at it. You didn't look away.
I didn't. It was hard. I mean, I remember...
And he kept at it, though, right? He kept stuttering.
Yeah. Oh, he then finished the sentence.
He said, you can't approach. Would you go to the prom with me?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Doesn't that get you right in your toes?
Yeah.
So
wow.
you got to, I mean, there's a little tiny glimpse of what this guy's character is made of right there.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, geez, the news that came out of your interview, at least what the, regular news guys picked up, was when he said to you, I can die a happy man never having been president of the United States of America, but it doesn't mean I won't run.
Right.
And they grabbed onto that. There's something sad about the fact that the odds are the whole sense of your piece is that in some respects, no matter how amazing this guy is in so many ways, we don't take him seriously.
Yeah, I think that's finally what I was left with. It was like, wait a second, everybody, hang on. Please take this man seriously.
And that's the thing. That was part of the question he couldn't answer for you.
Yeah.
There's this thing.
Yeah.
Where people think, and I mean, you said maybe it's that someone who's so charming, so lovely, so kind, so right where he's supposed to be, on top of everything, we just can't invest him also with, I don't know, the intelligence or the gravitas to be the president?
Yeah, this is what bothers me, because it's like he's not allowed to be smart.
But he is.
He's very smart. He is.
But we like this. We're comfortable with the idea of him as the crazy uncle with the lampshade on his head.
Right. Which, as I, spent the amount of time I did with him, he is not that guy.
Not.
He is not. He's a really smart, dignified, caring, immensely successful politician in terms of being able to the depth of empathy in this guy is unmatched.
Right. Well, so you've profiled and spent time with an awful lot of famous people. Is he like one of the most human of all of them that you've encountered? Or not? That's not fair. I mean, or did you love him more, or did you? No.
I didn't want to stop hanging out with him.
Okay, there it is.
That's how I felt like I felt a little bit frustrated that he was vice president, because I knew that meant we couldn't be friends. You know what I mean? Like, if he didn't have this vice president thing hanging on,
you could call him maybe
in a
few
have him
weeks.
Over. Yeah,
you could have him over for dinner.
But yeah, he's just really. It's really hard not to like him. I got to tell you.
Man. Well, what fun! But he was with the Pope. He was totally, cool, right?
Oh, you should have seen him get out of the car when they had this band playing for him. Like trumpets, and he had with the I can't even remember. That was the prime minister of something. These soldiers and standing in the rain, playing with his band, and he's got to salute everybody and walk down there, and he does it great. But it's like, wait, that's Joe.
That's just Joe here from Wilmington. And he didn't kiss the Pope's ring.
Pardon?
Did you say he didn't kiss the Pope's ring, or is that some other story I'm mixing it up with?
No, he did not kiss the Pope's ring, neither did his sister, and it got a lot of international play that this was a big deal, but the truth is a lot of people didn't kiss the Pope's ring. I'm not sure why this gets
It
why
did get
this
play?
gets circulated as an issue. In fact, some of the people who, especially this Pope, some of the people who kissed his ring, he's turned around and kissed theirs. I mean, that's not the kind of Pope even that we have right now.
No, apparently not. But can you imagine all the germs on that Pope's ring? Yeah! But that's not why they didn't kiss it. Jeanne, as usual, you're just, man. Anyone who's going to be profiled, they want you. Well, maybe not, because if they're jerks, you'll get that too. But really well done. Are you doing anybody interesting at the moment?
Oh, I've got a few things I'm researching. Nobody famous at the moment.
Okay. All right.
But I'll tell you about it when I get it cooked.
Okay. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. It's great to talk to you.
Looking forward to it. Great always to talk to you, Jeanne. Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That's Jeanne Marie Laskas. She, by the way, teaches creative writing. Not creative writing. Great writing at the University of Pittsburgh, and is author of many books. You name it. I mean, she had her own Washington Post column for some years. I think she's not doing that anymore. And she writes for GQ and I think Esquire and all those magazines that feature great writers. So, hope you enjoyed that. And check it out. It's online at, GQ.com. Check it out. Great story. All right, tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, my sister is not with us. We will talk. 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 Thank you. Goodbye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.